Unethical attorneys are exploiting families managing autism and divorce. Get my free white paper using the button below. I'm Anne McMillan from neurodiversemarriage.com, and in this video, I will give you 8.77777 reasons why neurodiverse divorce is so difficult for families managing autism. Please subscribe to my channel for regular content about neurodiverse communication and what that has to do with you, your family, and your life if you are in one of these neurotribes that includes neurotypicals, autistics, and many non-autistic neurodivergents. The first thing you need to know is something you probably already know, and that is that many attorneys are very unethical. They make money off of conflict. And guess what happens in neurodiverse families when you have one person who is on the spectrum and one person who is not? There is a lot of very confusing conflict. And family law attorneys who would like to have a second house or a boat can really exploit that conflict, harming everyone in the family to such an extent that something really needs to be done. But if you really believe that our government is going to solve any problems, well, that might be on you. Don't know what to say about that, but one thing you can do is inform yourself about what's going on in the legal system so that you can protect your family from being exploited the way many families have been exploited before you. The second thing you need to know about autism and divorce is an opinion of mine, although I'm not the only person I hear expressing it. I really believe that a majority of the high conflict divorces that we see in our divorce system are neurodiverse divorces. Neurodiverse couples are being pulled into this system, and those unethical attorneys are egging the conflict on because the more conflict there is, the more money they make. And of course, the more money the unethical attorneys make, the less money the families have after divorce, during divorce, for the children. The equation is not good for the families managing autism. The third thing to think about is something you probably already know if you're in a neurodiverse family, and that is that the communication difficulties that are going on during your everyday life only get worse during divorce. All of a sudden, not only are you having the communication difficulties that you have on a daily basis, but you're having them in a very intense, extreme, traumatic situation in which you're trying to negotiate something that's hopefully fair and good for the family as a whole. But if you're in a neurodiverse family, you probably already know how difficult that is to accomplish if the subject is what we're having for dinner. When the subject becomes how do we split the assets and who gets what parenting time, it gets worse, a lot worse. It's like the neurodiverse communication problems you're having during your marriage on extreme steroids, with those unethical attorneys at your side making money off of the conflict. The fourth thing to think about is just how autism plays a role in all of this. So one of the difficulties that many autistic people have is understanding how their own actions will affect other people's reactions. And in the case of divorce, they have a difficult time understanding how their own decisions in the divorce will affect their partner's reactions to their decisions in the divorce. So what happens is an unethical attorney comes along and convinces an autistic person to take some pretty aggressive actions that the autistic person tends to feel good about, but that the autistic person probably isn't really very aware of how their non-autistic partner is probably going to respond to those actions in the divorce. So the autistic partner's attorney convinces the autistic partner to aggress, and then the non-autistic partner needs to aggress back in order to push back hard enough to maintain their position in the negotiation. And the attorneys love this, right? The more that they can get one partner to be aggressive, the more they can get the other partner to be aggressive back. And pretty soon, everybody's fighting and they're sucking a lot of money out of the family. It's a big problem. The fifth thing to think about is how mindblindness plays a role in this. So if you're having difficulties in daily life, understanding your partner's perspective or what their needs are or how they might see a situation, think about how much worse that might get during divorce when you're feeling a lot of stress, you're feeling hurt, bad things have happened in your relationship, you're heartbroken, and you're really, really sure that your perspective is the right perspective because it's the perspective that you see the most, and you might not have all the insight that you might need into understanding what your partner's perspective might be in the divorce. So that mind blindness is something that the attorneys exploit. They exploit the autistic person's inability to really understand the relevance and the reality of their partner's perspective, often making the autistic person feel like they're very, very justified in taking those extreme aggressions because the autistic person really believes that they're right and has mind blindness and can't see the ways in which they're not right. And the attorneys are ecstatic about this, the unethical ones, because they can just take money for it. The sixth thing to think about in neurodiverse divorce is the reality that the many, many great family law professionals who are ethical, who do want families to be able to move through divorce and make the best life for themselves, even if they don't make as much money as the unethical attorneys. All of these people are setting up systems that they hope will help you, that are based on the assumption that both people in the negotiation have neurotypical brains. But the problem is that they're wrong. They don't understand how neurodiverse communication works or the dynamics of the conflict. And so they've set up these systems like mediation and the collaborative divorce process that are based on the assumption that both people are going to be able to see each other's perspectives and that both people are going to understand how their own actions will affect their partner's reactions, and that both people have a really well-built capacity to work together and collaborate to find a solution that really will be best for everyone based on the boundaries that the law has set. And to all of these great neurotypical professionals who have put together these processes, thank you. It's fantastic. It works for neurotypical couples. And it doesn't work so well when one of the brains that's coming to the negotiation is not a neurotypical brain or is not a non-autistic brain and is really struggling with mind blindness and with understanding how their own actions will affect their partner's reactions. So thank you for the systems, but they don't work. And ultimately, once those systems fail, once mediation fails, the only thing that's left for you and the expectation is that you will go before a judge. And that in the meantime, your attorneys will continue to try and get you to settle using back and forth aggressions, and they can get you to pay them to keep hurting your soon-to-be ex-partner because you want to hurt your ex-partner, or you feel justified hurting your ex-partner, or it feels like that might be a good idea to hurt your ex-partner. But the reality is that the only person it's a really good idea for is for your attorney who is making hundreds of dollars an hour. It's not really a super great idea for you to keep aggressing against your ex-partner in order to get what you think you deserve out of the divorce. Really, the best thing is to settle on something that the law says would be fair, just because that's the right thing to do. I get it that if you have an unethical attorney who's telling you to keep aggressing in order to try and get a better settlement for yourself, that you can do that. Nobody's going to stop you. But those continual aggressions against your partner are only going to harm your relationship so fully that it is destroyed. And sure, you may walk away with more money than you would have if you hadn't done those aggressions. And your attorney is certainly going to walk away with more money than you would have if you hadn't made those aggressions. But the other partner and possibly your children are going to walk away with a lot less money and therefore with a lot less of what they need in order to be happy, well, healthy human beings. And that money will be maybe yours and maybe your attorneys, but it won't be going to the people that life is about. Maybe your marriage didn't work out, but life is still about that ex-spouse and that parent of your children, and making sure that you're a good human being and that you are doing everything that you need to take care of your obligations to this family is only a positive thing. The seventh thing to think about is the impact that trauma plays in these neurodiverse divorces. I really believe, and I've talked about this in some of my other videos, that there is a consistent low-grade trauma going on in any neurodiverse intimate relationship, and that it's just a result of the incompatibility between the way the two brains are working and the difficulties that the two brains have in really meshing and connecting with each other. And that trauma, of course, gets much bigger when divorce happens. And the trauma is something that makes it very, very difficult for either partner to be responding as rationally and as maybe gently and as carefully as they would be able to if the trauma weren't there. And it's certainly something that attorneys can also exploit if they'd like. They can take advantage of how traumatized either partner is, the neurotypical or the autistic partner, because both partners are experiencing the trauma, and really get that person to believe that their own trauma justifies attacking the other partner, which of course results in an attack back, which of course gets the unethical attorneys exactly what they want, which is money from both partners. So keeping in mind the role that trauma plays is really important, and really addressing that trauma as much as possible so that the divorce can move forward as amicably as possible is a fantastic idea. The eighth thing to think about is that once mediation fails, as it almost inevitably always does, and once the families, the partners have paid their attorneys lots of money to attack their partner or to withhold documents or to play any of the games that these unethical attorneys can get you to play in order to pay them money, once all of that has transpired and you actually make it to court, often the judges are completely confused about what's going on. They see these two partners who've had this ridiculous fight that doesn't make any sense. They know, I'm sure, that the attorneys are part of the problem. What they don't understand is that what's really going on is that you have two people with two very different brains who are in this traumatic, high conflict situation without any resources there to help them get through their conflict in a way that's positive, finding themselves before the judge asking for a solution. And then that judge kind of has to take sides, and they just pick one partner or the other to decide must be the source of all of this fighting without having any comprehension that the real source is this incompatibility between the two brains. So when you finally do get before a judge, after years and years of giving money to attorneys, it can be kind of about who peed in the judge's Cheerios that morning, or what time the court case was held. Was it held right after lunch? How was the judge feeling right after lunch? Or if it was held right before lunch, maybe the judge was a little hungry, and maybe the judge is going to be biased against one or the other of you, maybe based on something that happened in their own family the night before. And ultimately what you get is this outcome that was very, very difficult to find after years and years of paying attorneys, and also that doesn't make a lot of sense for your family. And sure, all of those more ethical family law professionals were trying to help you find a better solution, but that didn't work because they didn't understand the neurodiversity. So this is what you're stuck with. It's a problem. It's a big problem. So I said at the beginning of this video that I was going to give you 8.7777 things to think about with neurodiverse divorce. The 0.777777 is my way of emphasizing that the people who really, really get hurt from all of this are the children. And the spouses do too. It's not everything is always about the children. Like, adults are really, really harmed by this awful system too. But in the end, If you aggress against your ex-partner, your children hurt. They're in a lot of pain. And there are many cases, unfortunately, where all of this awful aggression, which, really boils down to a system that doesn't understand neurodiversity and unethical attorneys taking advantage of autism, all of this boils down to a lot of really, really broken families and a lot of, honestly, autistic parents who do lose contact with their children. And that's not something that should happen. But after a while, after these aggressions just keep happening and happening and happening, a lot of children are no longer interested in engaging with both parents or engaging in a family in any way that might be productive. And a lot of the partners who are aggressed against don't see any reason in trying to maintain a productive co-parenting partnership, because there was so much hell going on during the divorce that they can't get beyond that hell and start working together in a way that would be best for you and your children. So, think about solutions. The legal system is not built for autistic families. There needs to be a way to move your family through the legal system and get the divorce that you may very well need, because a lot of these neurodiverse marriages are not fantastic marriages. There is a level of incompatibility that is very, very difficult to manage. But think about solutions regarding how you can get the divorce in a way that is going to get you what you really, really want, which is that 0.777777 part, which is having a family at the end that, even though it's a divorced family, is a family that's really continuing to take care of your needs and your ex-spouse's needs and your children's needs in the best way possible, even though the two of you couldn't stay married. I'm Anne McMillan from neurodiversemarriage.com. Please feel free to reach out to me there if you'd like some support preventing these things from happening in your family. And please subscribe for consistent content about neurodiverse communication.